السلام عليكم. أنا ساره الخليوي second year medical student وعضو في فريق تعاون. اليوم إن شاء الله راح أشرح monthly changes that happen during the fetal period. The first thing I want you to understand is the difference between growth and development. بالأمثلة اللي أعطاكم إياها قالوا إنه growth is length and weight, while development is taste buds, hearing, respiration, vision, etc. So you may have already established that growth is purely physical, while development can be physical and or psychological. We're also going to cover the definition of the fetal period and the basics of the placental changes that happen. So the fetal period begins at the 9th week and ends at birth. It's characterized by maturation of tissue and organs and rapid growth of the body. عندنا مقياسين أساسيين نستخدمهم عشان نقيس حجم الفيتس. The first one is the crown heel length. Now this one is not very commonly used لأنه راح نقيس من the vertex of the skull until the heel of the foot. And as you may already know, the heel of the foot is not well developed until the final trimester. So for most of the fetal life, هذا المقياس absolutely useless. اللي بنستخدمه من البداية إلى النهاية أو most of the time is the crown rump length, and it's also known as the sitting height. اللي ينقيس من هنا إلى هنا. It's more accurate. بهذا الجدول يوضح الأرقام الطبيعية based on age, crown rump length and weight. Now let's start with the developmental changes. It's a very high yield slide. First we have the taste buds. They appear at the 7th week. Swallowing will develop at the 10th. Respiratory movements from the 14th to 16th. Sucking movement 24th. Some sounds can be heard by the 24th. Eyes are sensitive to light by the 28th. وبعد الولادة, the fetus or the baby is going to recognize forms of colors. Let's talk about the head and body developmental ratio. Now, what's so special about fetal development is that the rate at which the head grows compared to the rest of the body is going to be extremely fast. And as you can see, by the 3rd month, the head of the fetus will represent half of its size. And by the 5th month, it's going to represent 1/3 of its size. By birth, 1/4 of its size. So بيبدأ يقل الراتيو throughout the fetal development from half to 1/3 to 1/4. Before we get into what happens when, there are some terms I need you to understand. The first one is physiological umbilical herniation. بالسلايدز قالوا لكم إنه the umbilical cord is going to form by the 3rd month. And that's true, but to an extent. The umbilical cord is going to start to form way before the 3rd month. اللي بيصير بالشهر الثالث physiological umbilical herniation. What does this mean? Let's take it word by word. First of all, physiological. ليش قالوا physiological؟ لأنه عندنا حالة مرضية بتكون pathological، بس هذه ما لها أي دخل بالfetal development. هذه تصير way into adulthood. Usually الكبار بالسن اللي هو الباج. What happens during a pathological umbilical herniation is that the intestines, they're going to bulge out, which is similar to what happens during fetal development. The intestines of the fetus during the 3rd month, they're going to push away لأنه the rate of their growth is going to be very fast. فبيطلع على برا, it's going to bulge out, forming an umbilical cord. وبعدين نهاية الشهر الثالث, the intestines will withdraw completely and we're going to have a well-developed umbilical cord. Next up, we have the basics of the placenta. The cloudy figure you have here is the cranium frondosum. Down here we have the cranial leaf. هنا زي ما شرحت intestinal loops in the umbilical cord. And here we have the yolk sac and the yolk sac stalk, and توقع يعني شفتوا صور كفاية من ال yolk sac بجزئية المد. Here we have the lanugo hair. بيكون it's going to form من الشهر الخامس الرابع كذا. It's usually very light colored, very thin, fur-like hair. It's going to fall after birth. Here we have the vernix caseosa. It's going to form by the 7th month. It's basically a whitish fatty substance that covers the skin. Now let's talk about what happens when. بنبدأ بالشهر الثالث. The face becomes more human-like and the eyes move ventral aspect from the lateral side. What does this mean? خلال الفيتال development قبل الشهر الثالث الفيتس's eyes are going to be lateral, يعني زي السمكة كل عين بجهة. بس لما يقرب من الشهر الثالث ومن بعده يبدون يقربون البعض forming a human face, يعني يبدأ يشبه إنسان يعني. Primary ossification centers start to form. The bones are going to become more solid, stronger. External genitalia will develop, and the intestinal loops back in the abdomen form the umbilical cord, زي ما شرحنا بالبداية. During the 4th and 5th month, the fetus is going to grow بشكل مرة ملحوظ, and it's going to start to develop lanugo hair. The movement of the fetus can be felt by the mother. During the 6th month, the skin will become reddish and wrinkled عشان ما في connective tissue كفاية إنها تشد الجلد. في حال انولد الفيتس by the 6th month نسبة survival is extremely low. ليش؟ Most of the systems are going to be well formed, working fine, functional, بس ما راح يصير في تواصل بين الجهاز العصبي والجهاز التنفسي. The survival rate is extremely low, and it's going to get extremely high up to 90% بس بعد شهر اللي هو الشهر السابع. And the eyes are going to be sensitive to light. الشهر الثامن والتاسع, the fetus will have well-rounded contours due to the development of subcutaneous fat. هنا بيصير vernix caseosa, which is تعريفه skin covered by whitish fatty substance composed of secretion of the subcutaneous gland and dead epidermal skin. بيزيد وزنه, the sexual characteristics will be well marked, and the testicles will descend to the scrotum. Finally, we are going to talk about sutures in fontanelles. Now, the fetus's skull is very similar to a normal adult skull, بس اللي لازم تركزون عليه الfontanelles اللي هم they're soft spots on the infant's head where the bony plates that make up the skull have not yet formed together. So it's normal for infants to have these soft spots, which can be seen and felt from the top of the head. وحنا as medics, as doctors, مطلوب مننا نقيس هذه الفونتانيلز أول ما ينولد البيبي وبعد فترة من الولادة عشان إذا الأحجام abnormal could be pathological. So you should know the sutures and the fontanelles. The basic fontanelles اللي عندنا الكبير هذا هو basic one. It's called the anterior fontanelle, and the posterior one is a lot smaller. We have the sutures, the frontal suture, the sagittal suture, and the coronal suture. Other than that, the bones are very similar. That's all. The lecture is very easy, very simple. Go through the slides, read them again, and I highly recommend watching this video. It's going to help you visualize the herniation of the umbilical cord. And thank you so much for listening. إذا عندكم أي أسئلة, please contact me. And thank you.